What is the thought process of the world's best striker, Noel Noa, and how can you use it? His logical, efficient philosophy is really simple to use. However, to explain it, we will be going into manga spoilers, which will give away some of the setup for a future arc. Okay, there's a really interesting conversation between Isagi and Noa in chapter 158. Isagi begins by asking, what do I need to do to increase my ranking? To which Noa responds by asking about his specialty, his weapon. When Isagi replies with direct shots, Noa then begins a series of questions which seem to get more and more into the details of this. However, what quickly becomes clear is that he's actually working out a route backwards from a goal that Isagi can take. To score a goal, he'll likely use his direct shot. To use that, he'd need to get past his opponents unmarked and be near the goal. To do that, he'd need the vision to see openings and the stamina to make it to them. However, when Noa asks him on the details of that, Isagi seems to falter. He's very aware that his physical ability is his biggest weakness, but Noa doesn't let him get away with just pinning it on that, as he coldly but very calmly asks him, assuming you had all that, could you beat me? Isagi admits he doesn't know, and Noah's response when Isagi asks him what he lacks is extremely insightful and is actually the main point of this video, but before that I just want to go over what we've just seen. This whole idea of working backwards from a goal is something you should try yourself. You don't have to do it now, but once you do, you realize whatever it is you want, it's probably a lot simpler than you realize. If you've watched my videos before, you can probably guess what example I'm going to give. The gym. Let's say you want to get in shape. To do that, you need to work out, and you need to improve your eating, okay? Looking at the workout side of things, you need to know what program you're gonna do, and then you're gonna need to know how to do the exercises in there. Once you write it all down, it seems really obvious, but that's kind of the point. When you don't know how to do something, unsurprisingly, you'll very rarely end up doing it. It becomes so easy to procrastinate and subconsciously hide behind the shield of, I don't know how to do this, but it can also just be very overwhelming to try and start something when you have a lot of unknowns about what to do in your head. So I think this is a really useful, logical plan, as we'd expect from Noa. However, I want you to bear something very important in mind whilst you're doing this. If you're just starting out, you do not need detailed answers. You do not need perfect answers. Using the gym as an example, don't get caught up on, is it this program or is it this program? In the same way Noa asked Isagi, if having all these traits would get him to where he wants to be, ask yourself, would knowing this actually get me closer to where I want to be? Deciding whether you're going to do plan A or plan B isn't actually going to get you close to the goal. Just doing either one of those will. On day one, you just need an answer, not an explanation. As you progress, you can add the details as they become increasingly important. Anyway, going back to Noa, but hopefully you can see the points I'm making and apply it to whatever it is you have in mind. When Isagi asks him what he's lacking, Noa responds, asking him what the first thing he does in the morning is. Does his first action of the day, does every action of the day bring him closer to his goal? Now, you don't have to spend quite literally every second focusing on one goal. Personally, I do like to spend the vast majority of my time focusing and progressing towards a target, but regardless of how extremely you want to go in, you should be very, very conscious of whether or not each and every action you're taking is actually getting you closer to your goal or not. There's obvious examples here where, let's say your goal is to pass an exam. So you say you'll study for an hour at 1 PM, for instance, but then it gets to 1 PM and you go, oh, well, I'll just tidy my room first so I can focus. And you spend ages tidying your room. And then after that you go, well, I'm not feeling motivated right now. I need to do this or watch this so I feel motivated. Neither of these things are actually getting you closer to your goal. They feel like they are, but really the only thing that will is actually sitting down and studying. But there's also less obvious examples. Let's jump ahead to chapter 199, where Isagi and Noa are on the attack together. With Noa by his side, Isagi's huge brain can see a ton of routes to the goal. There's a lot of options to him that will get him closer to there, and he realizes that he's wasting a lot of time looking at all of them. Noa picks up on this and tells him to get rid of unnecessary noise and streamline his thought process, because if all these routes are equal, just pick one. I kind of spoke about this in my previous video, but if you keep jumping between all these different routes, you won't get anywhere. So using YouTube as an example, I get a lot of questions from people wanting advice on their channel, and more often than not, when I look, they've made 3 or 4 videos and are already planning on changing their entire channel. And just imagine if Isagi got to here on his route and went, well, change your plan, let me take this route instead. He's never going to score like that. Whatever it is, YouTube, a sport, a personal goal, whatever it may be, stick with it for a while to see if it works and if you enjoy it. There's a time and place to reevaluate your strategy. I actually had an old YouTube channel that got about 60 subs after a year, and you know, changing that up has gone pretty well, but give it some time. Anyway, it's what Noah says next to Isagi that really stuck with me. As Isagi wastes his time looking at all the routes, Noah reminds him that he's not God and tells him to focus on the one single thing he desires most. For Isagi, it was to destroy Kaiser, and this really links back to the start where we spoke about, is this action actually going to bring you closer to what you want? So in my case, you know what I've wasted the most time on this year? It's not Facebook or video games. If you're a fellow YouTuber, you can probably relate to this. It's looking at the analytics on my channel, comparing myself to other channels, seeing if my views are up or down for the week and working out, oh, if I keep growing at this rate, I'll hit this many subs by the end of the year. But here's the thing, the one thing I want is not looking at the analytics. It's growing the channel. Staring at the analytics, whilst exciting and fine if it's just once a day or so, constantly checking it is not getting me closer to where I want to be. Focusing on the one thing you want stops you procrastinating and making excuses, because whatever it is you're distracting yourself with or hiding behind, you realize that those things just aren't as important as your main desire. And that is the main driver of Noah's efficient, effective philosophy that lets him stand on top of the world. Break it down into simple steps, be honest about whether or not what you're doing is actually benefiting you, and keep your sight firmly fixed on that one thing you want more than anything else. However, if you've watched all this and still aren't sure what it is you want to do, I've got a video coming out next week which will explain how to figure that out, so be sure to sub if you don't want to miss that. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.